Well, hello. Welcome to Florida has a disability savings program, or savings and investment program without the capital I. My name is John Finch. I am the director of Florida's ABLE program. So today, we're at the session that's actually been scheduled to talk about ABLE accounts. You might have been here yesterday where, if there's an opportunity to speak in front of a crowd, I will jump at it. And so I took advantage of it. And so welcome if you were from that session. Hopefully this will be a little more coherent and a little more streamlined and not as chaotic. But we're going to be talking about Florida's Disability Savings and Investment Program. Once again, John Finch, director of it. So before we go to that slide, how many of you have heard of ABLE accounts? All right, so we'll go straight to questions and answers. So that's good, right? Because as you see, as we go through this program, and you'll see we're still kind of new. We're celebrating our 5-year anniversary coming up. On July 1, we would have turned 5, and I remember helping launch this program and not knowing what to expect. But we're going to take you back to 2002. It was a nice, cool day in Virginia, and some parents were coming back from a conference, and we're starting to talk and sat around the dining room table and said, hey, why can't I save for my child with Down syndrome like I can save for my child who wants to go to college in a 529 plan? And so through their hard work and advocacy, the 529A section was added to the Internal Revenue Code, and the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act was passed. And what this act did, that was signed into law in 2014, was allow states to set up their own ABLE programs. And so we are the state of Florida's program, and the whole purpose really is this middle line here. The goal of an ABLE account and what its goal is to do and what the mission is to encourage individuals with disabilities to save after-tax dollars to support health, independence, and a quality of life. And so just high level, these ABLE accounts are kind of unique because it's a hybrid of what you would think of a checking savings account along with the benefits of a special needs trust in some capacity, along with having that kind of similar IRS code 529, which is where you find college savings accounts. So a lot of unique different products, but something brand new that never existed prior to its passage. Like I said, each state had to set up their own ABLE program. They had to dictate who was going to run it in the state. They had to pass their own law. So we passed the Florida ABLE Act. If you're nerdy and or if you're an attorney, one of those two. There's our Florida statute section, which I have memorized, and I will now read to you verbatim. No, I'm just kidding. But that is the section that state of Florida passed that says how are we going to run Florida ABLE. And so high level, they said the Florida Prepaid College Board would be the one to run it for the state of Florida. They run 529 college savings plans. They should be a pro. And they said, well, that's great. We're good on investments and saving for the future, but we don't know about disabilities or anybody in the disability community. And so I kind of came on board right before launch. Previously, I served 10 years at the ARC of Florida, which is a statewide nonprofit that advocates for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I did a lot of government and state work. We primarily the ones that the ARC of Florida was pushing the legislation to get the Florida ABLE Act into law. But ABLE United is under the Florida Prepaid College Board. So if you've heard of Florida Prepaid, anybody? Florida Prepaid, Florida College Savings Accounts, there you go. They've been around for 30 years, helped over 1 million families save for higher education expenses. Some other stats that somebody put on here. More than 98,000 students attended college in fall 2019 using prepaid plans. So pretty popular. I think the stats of like UF is like 1 in 3 have a prepaid plan, so that's pretty cool. I mean, they manage a lot of money, $12 billion to be exact. All right, so like I said, each state had to set up their own ABLE program. And so we're the state of Florida, but Georgia, Louisiana, Maryland, Hawaii, they all had to kind of pass their own legislation and figure out how they're going to run it. So each state has their own, and what's similar and different, I'm going to cover real high level just in case that comes up. We're all subject to the same federal law. We all follow Section 529A, the final regulations from the Treasury that dictate how. Man, I'm sorry I did not bring cake, guys. I don't know what's going on next door, but it sounds like a party, and so I apologize. Ashton, we should have. Ashton is a loveliest. I get to work with her on a marketing side of things, and so it was her job to bring cake. So blame her. So each state, I know, we don't have to ride home together, so it's fine. Each state had to enact state legislation. We kind of talked about that. We're all kind of similar that we're under the college savings programs across the state. We all typically have online enrollment. The big difference you're going to find is fees. We'll talk about Able's United's fee, which was a sneak peek. We don't really have fees. We're limited to state of Florida only, but some Able programs are open to nationwide enrollment. And who on the back end is managing your record keeping, and we'll talk about that. This is my long presentation, so you get all the boring stuff like other federal legislation that has changed since the ABLE Act passed in 2014. And the biggest two being the Able to Work and Financial Planning Act. Both of these basically said, hey, if you're working and not saving for retirement, you can contribute more than the $15,000 annual contribution limit. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And you could take advantage of a savings credit, reduce your take a credit and reduce your taxes. And then the Financial Planning Act allowed people to roll over 529 accounts. Because remember, they're similar to college savings accounts, but not exact. And so there's a law that passes, say, hey, you can roll those over, but it does count towards the contribution limit. The one piece of legislation that has yet to pass, but we're pretty excited, and hopefully it will pass this year. And if you do have an opportunity to reach out to your either congressman or senator up in D.C., there's the Able Age Adjustment Act that would seek to move the eligibility requirements from 26 to 46 of the age of diagnosis, which would nationwide 6 to 8 million more people. Here in Florida, we estimate 400 to 700,000 more people would be eligible for Able accounts if that were the case. So something to be looking at. And before we go further, many of you, does anybody have Able accounts or have a child? Okay, a handful of you. Okay, now you all come up and share your stories, and then I don't have to. But yeah, so just real high level, these are some of our account holders. The first one being Jen on the top left there, and her son Sean. She was one of those families that sat at that dining room table saying, we need to do something to be able to save for our children's future. And then you see some of our other Able accounts holder, whether it be a DJ up here in the top right, Elliot and his mom, or Alicia on the bottom, saving for a wheelchair accessible van. So it's just pretty cool to interact, and that's why I love Family Cafe. It's an opportunity to meet with the people we get to serve, which is always fun, and it's better than being in an office in Tallahassee. So, and feel free to interject questions, and then I'll tell you if we're going to answer them later on or not. But eligibility. Let's talk about who can have an Able account. If you notice, there's kind of two sections. They're kind of the same, but the one on the right is more if you're not receiving government benefits, how do you qualify? So, like I said, Florida resident at the time you apply. That's at the time you apply. So if you move out of the state, you can take the Able United account with you, but you might want to check what that Able's program offers. There might be some additional benefits, like some states have this thing called state income tax, and you can actually write off some of your taxes, state taxes, by contributing to that state's Able program. So that's something to be paying attention to if you move out of the state. The other two are true for all Able programs, that the disability had to occur or be diagnosed prior to age 26, and it has to be severe. Either they're receiving SSI, that's supplemental security income, or Social Security disability insurance. And so if they're receiving those, they automatically qualify. If they're not, we have this other section where you're basically saying, hey, I have a diagnosis from a doctor that the individual has a physical or mental impairment prior to age 26. It has what they call marked and functional limitations. Basically, they need extra help, whether that be additional doctor's appointments or physical types of devices to help them be more mobile, or an intellectual disability. So some type of severe disability, and it's expected to last for at least 12 months, which is got cut off or somewhere in there. So something that's going to be longer term. And here's just like some examples of the types of disabilities. This is actually taken from the IRS. What happens is when you go through the enrollment process, the IRS is like, okay, can you give us one of the diagnosis, the primary diagnosis of the individual? And so they give you 7 categories, and here's the type. So you can see, and if you have questions, we have an eligibility wizard on our website that can kind of help guide you through these types of questions to see if you're eligible. But what I love about it is it's very broad. So it's not just, for example, I do have a pointer, autistic spectrum disorder or Asperger's, but it could be moderate or severe intellectual disabilities. It can be psychiatric disorders, mental health types of disorders. We see a lot of people with cerebral palsy that have ABLE accounts, and then congenital anomalies like Down syndrome. A good friend of mine that has cystic fibrosis has an ABLE account, so it's pretty cool. So very broad range of the types of disabilities that qualify for an ABLE account. So who owns the account? And this is also unique. Yes? Quick question.
No SSI, no SSDI, DAC, yes.
Yes.
Adult child.
Yes.
And has an autism diagnosis.
Yes, that would qualify. So the question was, they receive DAC, which is called Disabled Adult Children. It's a type of benefit that usually parents starting to collect retirement or Social Security. Exactly. So that's an earned benefit, but yes, that's also a qualifier. You would just select the SSDI when you go through enrollment. So talking about ownership, who owns the account, this is also unique. It's the individual with a disability. This is their account. It's their money. So that's important to know because now you're creating an asset and a resource for this loved one. But somebody else can help manage that account for them, a parent, a power of attorney, a guardian. We're starting to slowly roll out some of these final regulations that came out last year that expanded on who can open an account. And so we're starting with entities serving as a representative payee for Social Security. But hopefully this will be expanded to include siblings, grandparents, the like, that they could actually open these accounts and manage them. But stay tuned. Next year's going to be, the presentation is going to be completely different. Not really, but there's so many changes. All right, so that's eligibility. We kind of discussed the history, who's eligible. Now we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, ABLE and public benefits, because that's one of the primary advantages of an ABLE account is to be able to save and keep more than $2,000 if you're on Medicaid or SSI. They're like, don't save, don't save. Well, now with an ABLE account, you can. And so we're going to talk about those specifics, starting with Medicaid. So Medicaid, make sure we're all on the same page, is a federal and state match program that helps pay for medical costs. It's a very robust set of services. It is based on, for some individuals with limited income or significant disabilities. We also have what they call home and community-based waivers, with the goal of keeping individuals at home or in their community and to help pay for services that surround it. The two being most popular ones that we see here at Family Cafe is the iBudget through the Agency for Persons with Disabilities and long-term care. Long-term care is kind of new, but it's encompassed several other waivers that kind of collapsed into this. But people with traumatic brain injury, they had a waiver, is now into long-term care. But they also receive a home and community-based waiver. So very robust, significant disabilities. But it has a resource limit. You can only have $2,000, not much. But the great thing is funds in the ABLE account or even taken out of the ABLE account are disregarded when determining that eligibility. One of the things that the number one question we probably receive is, what about Medicaid recovery? Is the state going to take all my ABLE funds? I put money away, God forbid something happens, they pass away, the state's going to come in and take all the money. And we didn't want that to happen. That was a concern that we all had. The state agreed. And so we passed legislation that says that Medicaid can no longer file a claim on an ABLE account, which is great. Now, be wary, there is something called Medicaid estate recovery. I'm not an attorney, but basically high level, that's something that is in place for people over the age of 55. So nothing to worry about now, but if your loved one is 55 or older, there is something called Medicaid estate recovery. Definitely look into that to see if that could apply. And then also, what happens to those funds if a beneficiary passes away? It goes to their estate, and so it's just how the program works. But once again, you could pay for outstanding qualified disability expenses first, which we'll talk about, but it includes funeral and burial and those kind of life-in things. All right, the other one, right? So this law is moving, it's passing, and Social Security was like, wait, we got to put some additional rules in. We can't just have people put all their money in the ABLE account and get an SSI check. So they had to come out with some additional rules, because Social Security loves rules. And so for supplemental security income, so remember that's that monthly check, I think it's like $790 now or so, helps pay for basic living expenses, housing, food, clothing, if you can find housing for that amount. But there are some additional rules if you have SSI and an ABLE account. The two biggest ones being that generally funds in the ABLE account, like for Medicaid, doesn't matter if they're in the account or out of the account, they don't count as a resource. However, for SSI, only the first $100,000 is an excludable resource. So anything above that would count as a resource. So, if you're on SSI, you're getting close to the 100,000, be wary, pay attention, because your SSI benefits could be suspended. Also, what's cool about an ABLE account is it can be used to pay for housing expenses. But if you think about what the purpose of SSI is to pay for housing expenses. And so what happens if you're using an ABLE account to pay for housing expenses? That's allowable. You just have to do it in the same month you make the withdrawal, or have the ABLE account pay it directly. And I think we have an example that's going to walk us through what that looks like. As a state agency, we submit to Social Security. Part of the federal law requires us to submit to Social Security monthly all transactions on accounts, and they're supposed to see, okay, who has SSI and an ABLE account. If there was money moving or the money's now in that person's checking account, we can reach out and say, hey, what are you doing with this ABLE money that you took out? Because Social Security wants to know. And definitely check out the POMS manual. Everybody can click on that link, right? No? Okay. Just search Google ABLE POMS, P-O-M-S, and you should see Social Security POMS. It's a good, fun read, if you like to read manuals and stuff, because it stands for Program Operations Manual System. But that's how Social Security is supposed to treat ABLE accounts when it comes to SSI recipients. All right, this is fun stuff, riveting. I see everybody's just enthralled with this stuff. This is awesome. All right, so here's some fun examples, right? This is a straight taken from the POMS manual. These are the examples they provided. So the first one's going to be this housing, right? Because you can use an ABLE account to pay for housing, but you have to make sure you're following the rules. Amy takes a distribution of $500 from her ABLE account in May. All right, so that was a few weeks ago, right? So May 20th comes. She's like, okay, I got rent due in June, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out now. So she takes it out, and then she puts it into her checking account in May, and then lets it sit there over the month to June. She takes it out in June to pay her landlord. Well, guess what? That's an acceptable expense. It's a housing-related expense, but Social Security is going to say, hey, since it was housing, at the beginning of June, that's going to count towards your resource limit. So, that could jeopardize her benefits for the month of June. So be careful. How do you avoid that happening? Because remember, housing's more than just rent. It's utilities, it's taxes, it's those types of insurance, those things that are Social Security considers housing expenses apply. So what do? Have the ABLE account pay it directly or withdraw and pay the same month. It's a great way to keep your full SSI check and not have a reduction in SSI benefits. So it's a little loophole that the attorneys love, that I love. It's just, a little bit of being careful what you do, but just have the ABLE account pay it directly and don't worry, which we see quite a bit of, a lot of taxes and a lot of insurance for housing. We're talking about the other rule that we see most applicable is the ABLE account balance. Remember I said for SSI recipients. Remember this is all about SSI recipients. If they have $101,000 in their ABLE account and $1,500 in their checking, all right? So let's do the math. $1,500 plus the excess of the $100,000 is $1,000. Together that's $2,500. That's more than $2,000. So what's going to happen? The good thing in this situation is our friend Paul here. It's his ABLE account that's causing him to go over that limit, so his benefits would just be suspended, but he'd still be eligible for Medicaid. If it was reversed, let's say he had $2,500 in his checking and $101,000, it would be his checking account that's causing him to go over that threshold, and he would lose his benefits. So just something to be wary, if you get to $100,000, so far we only have 7 accounts in that category. Anybody here with that one of those 7 accounts? No? Okay, just checking. Tell me your secrets after. All right. What about other federally means-tested programs? So when the legislation passed, it pointed to anything that was what they call a federally means-tested program, that they're going to test how much income, how much assets, they're looking at that. And so basically a lot of national organizations and other ABLE programs got together and said, okay, we need writing, we need letters, we need proof that this is true. And so this just kind of walks through all these different ones. So we already talked about Medicaid and Medicare. They flat out said it shouldn't count. United States Department of Agriculture, which, it's fun reaching out to them because, what does it have to do? But they manage the SNAP program or the supplemental nutrition. Here in Florida, I think it's called FNS or the EBT cards. Those check your resources. ABLE accounts don't impact that. It's not counted as a resource. HUD housing or other types of HUD-assisted programs should not count ABLE accounts. And the last one being the U.S. Department of Education. What's interesting is they're the only federal agency that has not provided guidance. And really, for them, it only comes down to the FAFSA application. I remember filling that out. My parents and I, we just kind of winged it, and here I am today. So, but FAFSA they look at resources. Generally, ABLE accounts should not be counted as a resource when applying for education. All right, anything public benefits related questions as it deals with ABLE accounts? The big thing I would say, okay, we have a question here. Let me make this point. Ultimately, ABLE accounts shelter resources, not income, all right? So when you're thinking, oh, ABLE account, I can start earning $5,000 a month and keep my SSI check if I put the whole all that money in the ABLE account. No, we shelter how much cash, how much savings you can have, which is more than $2,000. If you start earning a bunch, that could impact your Medicaid or your SSI benefits or even your SSDI benefits. But go ahead, your question. Yes, ma'am.
So is there no longer a limit of $15,000 per year that you can put in?
We're getting to that next. So we were talking, she's like, can you tell me about the contribution limits? Yes, so we're about to get to that in a slide or two. What was your other question? Yeah, so if you're interested in Medicaid recovery, because that just sounds so enthralling and you just want to learn more, type in Medicaid estate recovery for Florida, and you'll learn about it. But there's certain Medicaid laws that state that if you have an estate, if you're over the age of 55, they get to take that money back, because one of the primary drivers of Medicaid is individuals that fall in that category. Not so much, but since home and community-based waivers are a Medicaid program, they're subject to those rules as well. All right, so yes.
So with this and say a pool trust, because I had to set up a pool trust when I started working in order to my income. Would I still need to be putting money in the pool trust if I have an ABLE account?
All right, so good questions on pool trust. We're going to talk about trust a little bit at the end, and I'll do my best to remember your question, but we'll talk more when we get to this next section. Good question. All right, so let's talk about how the accounts actually work, right? You got the history, you got the benefits. Now I want to enroll. What do I do? So just like any other financial product where you can go to enroll, we need to know who you are, right? So name, date of birth, social. If you're doing this on behalf of somebody, we're going to need to know your information and their information. If you are doing this on behalf of somebody and they're an adult, we're going to need either a durable power of attorney or legal guardian paperwork that basically says, hey, I'm authorized to open this account on behalf of an adult. You're going to need some banking information. That's primarily how you're going to get money into the ABLE account and take money out. There is a minimum $25 contribution, but if you open a new account by the end of the month, we're going to give you $50. So hey, that's a pretty good return on your money right there. And then ultimately, you get to select how you want to invest or save the funds you're putting into your account. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to enroll. We're hopefully going to change some of this in the future. So if you're not following us on Facebook, that was where I was going to start. I was going to say, how many of you have Facebook? All right. Facebook.com/Able United. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in now, even though I'm 45 minutes late. We're giving away iPads, 3 iPads. All you got to do is like on a post and comment. It should be at the top. So do that now. I promise I won't be hurt if you're doing that right now. But Facebook.com/Able United. Like and comment, and they're entered, right? And where are we up to, Ashton? Like 300 probably-ish? You have no clue. Ashton doesn't have Facebook. I didn't know that was I don't think you could survive without Facebook. I didn't thought it was like a mandatory requirement if you're in marketing, right? I thought that was, anyways. Yes. Good question. Currently, no. A representative payee would not be able to establish an account unless they were part of an entity organization that serves as rep payee for multiple individuals. That's going to change hopefully towards the end of this year. We're still in the process of rolling it out and all the fun legal stuff and all those items. Yeah, then you just submit your legal guardianship documents and that will be sufficient. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got excited. I hit the buttons too fast. All right, so that's what you're going to need. You're going to start off with putting your email address in there and that you read our program disclosure documents because everybody reads the fine print. I know you all do. You seem like a very smart group here that does that. One of the other things you're going to do as you're doing the account setup, there's an opportunity to set a savings goal. So it tells you, hey, what do I want? It kind of gets you in that mindset of what am I going to save for? Am I saving for everyday living expenses? Do I have this big purchase in mind down the road? And it's just an optional way to kind of see what your target is and what you need to do each month to be able to hit that target. But you also get to select your investment options, which is really exciting because you get to choose how you want this account to be set up. Do you want it to be a savings account? Do you want it to be an investment account? Do you want to do both? And we give you that flexibility to do that. For those that are like, hey, I don't know much about investing, we have pre-designed portfolios based on how much risk they want to take on. Okay? It wasn't me, I don't think. Conservative, moderate, and growth. Those are different risk portfolios. They're already diversified. You don't have to worry about that. But they're made up of our actual individual fund options you see on the right. And so we have a money market, a U.S. bond and U.S. stock fund that's managed by Vanguard, an international fund that's managed by BlackRock, and then we also have an FDIC savings product. If you're just like, hey, I don't know what to do, I need the money like next week, an FDIC product would probably be appropriate. So, but you can mix and match, choose how you want, change how incoming contributions at any time. Money that's already invested in the account can only be moved around twice per year. So that's important to know. If if you're like, oh, the market's about to tank, I'm gonna go ahead and move it. Oh, I'm just kidding, I'm gonna move it back. That's 2 movements and you can't move it again for the rest of the year. But any incoming money, you can change it every time, and we'll talk about taking money out as well. So going to your question on contributions, great thing is contributions to an ABLE account are considered completed gifts, not income towards the individual. So if you have family members that are like, hey, we want to help out, and you're like, okay, great, just don't send the money in his name because it'll mess everything up. You can set up a gifting page, which I think is on the next page, but you can give it to their ABLE account and it not count as income. So that's pretty cool. There's some limitations, total of $15,000 per calendar year. So that resets every January 1, but that's aggregate from all sources. So if you put in $10,000 at the beginning of the year, the most that can be contributed to that account for the rest of the calendar year is $5,000. So $15,000 per calendar year. If somebody, I mentioned this briefly, but the able to work is somebody who's working and not saving for retirement, they can contribute above that amount. And then also rollover funds from 529 savings plans is an option if you have, I was talking to somebody just earlier that said, hey, they have a sibling that's almost done with school. They were able to get scholarships. They have leftover 529 funds. How can I put this over there? You can actually roll it over and not take any penalties to that sibling's 529 account. So that's pretty unique way to help family and friends put money in it. And the last thing, like I said before, earnings counts as income regardless if it goes into the ABLE account or not. It still counts as earnings. So let me go to her and then I'll come to you. Yes, ma'am. She said, after you make a deposit, when are the funds available? Good question. So the account setup process and the verification process honestly takes about a full month, like to verify your identity, to get the funds, to clear it. After those 30 days, money can be taken out in as little as 3 to 5 days, business days usually, because this is an investment that has to be sold and then sent back to your account. And then also depends on recent contributions. So if I put in, let's say I had an account balance of $500 and I put in $10,000 and then I've tried to take out $2,000, we're going to have to wait to that $10,000 clear, which is about 14 days. Yes, ma'am.
About the able to work, how do they determine if you're not saving for retirement? You have to sign an affidavit if you're saying you're going to spend it before you're 65.
So when it comes to the able to work contribution, it gives a little clause saying, hey, I want to make an able to work contribution. And we have a little statement saying an able to work, what an able to work contribution is, and that you're attesting that I don't have a savings or retirement account and I'm working. And then it's up to you to track that because it is limited to how much you can do. And it's based on either your total earnings for the year or the federal poverty limit for a single household, which is $12,740 or $960. $960 sounds good. So that's the most you could put in the able to work portion.
That was going to be the second part about how much about 15,000.
Yeah, 12,960, I believe. That sounds right. Does that sound good? Yeah, that sounds right. So a total of 27,960 you could put in this account if the beneficiary is making at least 12,960 and is not saving for retirement. I saw another question over here. Okay. Go to her and then I'll come to you. Good question was about Gardner. So many families are able to take advantage of the Gardner scholarships, which have very defined rules that they're made for educational type expenses. Unfortunately, since ABLE is so much broader than what you can use it for than education, you cannot put Gardner funds into an ABLE account. You can't put excess Gardner funds. You can put excess Gardner funds in a 529 savings account, but then you cannot roll that over to an ABLE account because we have to track those funds separately as a state. And then, if those funds aren't used, ultimately the Gardner funds would go back to the state to be used by other families. So, but good question. Let me do him and then I'll come to you. Okay, sir? Yes, sir.
Yeah, necessarily $5,000 in the account. The whole thing is an investment.
Okay.
If I need 2,000, are you going to sell it that much and give the money?
Yes. Yes. So,
It could be when the market is low, it would have to wait.
correct. So yeah, it is. What's unique is when you go onto your account, because you're purchasing actually an investment, and you're going to get shares. We're going to track how much shares of that investment you own in our pool of shares, and then we're going to sell that shares amount for how much money you requested. And depending on the value of the asset, because daily we strike what they call a NAV, or a net asset value is what you're tracking, and that goes up and down daily based on the market. And so, if you sell today, but then the market does well tomorrow, then you're going to lose a little bit of those earnings. But if it did bad, then you're ahead. So, yes. They are mutual funds. They're all large, broad mutual funds. Of all our investment options are based on broad mutual funds. Let me go to him, and then I'll start working my way back. Yes, sir.
So if you have a trust for your disabled son,
Okay.
will Medicaid swoop in to recover funds from the ABLE account because you have a trust account?
Good question. Let me get through a couple more slides on contributions and withdrawal, and we'll talk about special needs trust and Medicaid if you don't mind. Let me go to her. Any other questions that relates to contributions, distributions, or how you utilize an account? Let me go to her.
Okay, when you go to and you pick the investment, either in the savings or the Vanguard, something like that, can you pick multiple different ones each time?
Yes.
You have to stick with one choice.
No, you get to choose every time you make a deposit. It's pretty cool. It's based on the dollar. So let's say I have $100. I want to put $100 in my ABLE account. You get to select, where do I want that $100 to go? I want maybe $10 to go in the conservative, $50 in the moderate, and maybe $40 into the FDIC option. You have that option every time you contribute. Let me go to him in the back, and then we'll come here. Yes, sir. Say again? So who owns it is the person with the disability. It's their account. So once a contribution is made to their account, it is now theirs. It is their asset, their resource, and we're investing it on their behalf based on how they chose, whether it be investment or a savings option. But yes, and we'll have an opportunity to look at some of the performance, I think, maybe on the next slide. All right, one more question, and then I'm going to move on. Let me get to him, and then we'll hold on our questions, and let's get through some of this presentation. Yes, sir.
Real simple. Is there a max on the savings account?
Yes, the maximum that these accounts can receive in contribution, or lifetime max of an account value, is $418,000. But if you contribute the max amount each year, it's still going to take about 20 years to hit that. So we'll talk at Family 43, okay? Family Cafe 43. I'll have an update for you. All right.
Is there a reporting requirement, like how you spend the ABLE account money?
Good question. When we get to the withdrawal sections on the next page, I'll talk about reporting requirements. So talking about getting money into the account, every ABLE account has the opportunity to set up a unique gifting portal. Kind of think of a GoFundMe page, but for an ABLE account. It looks like this. You can send an email out and say, hey, make a contribution. It will take them up to a nice online secure page where they can contribute via ACH or debit card directly to that person's ABLE account. You can even select what it's for, whether it be a birthday or just because or anniversary, etc. So that's pretty cool, and it's a great way to have family and friends help out as well.
Again, $15,000 total.
$15,000 per calendar year. Yeah, if you send us extra money, we'll send it back to you. So the system, that's federal regulation, and we follow it to a T. So now you have to get the money out, right? Money's going in there. It's saving. It's investing. Little John, my name's John, so I always use myself as an example. Little John is like, hey, I want to go to Family Cafe. I have to pay for a hotel room. Can I utilize my ABLE funds for that? And you can. So I want to get money out. How do I do that? A couple of ways. The most frequent way we see is an electronic transfer back to a connected bank account. Remember, this isn't a bank account in itself, so we don't have checks or debit cards. Some other state ABLE programs make you have a debit card or utilize a checking portion. Florida's more focused on the investment side. But an electronic transfer back to a connected bank. You can request a check to be sent to you or the administrator on the account or a third party. But our newest feature is our optional ABLE Visa prepaid card. It does cost $2.50 per month, but it gives you the flexibility and gives that beneficiary the flexibility to utilize a prepaid card or a Visa prepaid card anywhere Visa is accepted. So It's pretty cool because we launched that February of last year. We've had over close to 500 cards established now, and over $500,000 has been put on these cards and utilized from everywhere to online shopping at Amazon, to Taco Bell, to filling up their car or paying for that upcoming dentist appointment, all in between. So it's pretty cool to see how people are utilizing it. But it gives that flexibility and that freedom, and you can control how much you want to put onto it. So whether that be $100, $500, it's up to you. It's pretty cool. The great thing is that, like I said, these accounts have the opportunity to grow tax-free. And as long as you're using for qualified disability expenses, the earnings portion is not taxable. So that's pretty cool. And then when you take money out, you get to choose, how do I want that money to come out? If you separated it into a savings and investment tool, you can just take out the investment portion of it or the savings portion, and just use the savings portion for expenditures while keeping your investment growing. And then finally, talking about documentation and reporting. We're not going to request, oh, I forgot I'm wearing a mic, sorry, audio guy. But the IRS could. We're not going to request documentation, but Social Security could. So if you're either on SSI benefits or if you make a withdrawal for IRS purposes, keep that documentation and a note why it's a qualified disability expense. If you do make a withdrawal from an account, this is important to know. This is a lot. Oh, front row, I've seen it. She's like, oh, he's talking taxes again. I don't even know. I haven't done my taxes and we're way late. Anyways, I have. I'm just kidding. I did my taxes. If you take a withdrawal from the account, it's going to create what they call a 1099 QA. That is a fancy tax document that basically tells the IRS that this person who has this ABLE account withdrew $5,000. If that $5,000, how much of it was earnings? So let's say $500 of it was earnings and $4,500 of it was basis, or how much they put in. And as long as you check off and say, yes, I had an ABLE account, but we had all qualifying disability expenses, you don't have to report anything. It's just a notification to you that, hey, you made it. Now, if you say, we didn't have any qualifying expenses this year, we didn't pay for rent, we didn't use the car for gas, they never ate any food this year, you didn't come up with any qualified disability expenses, because the IRS is looking at the whole calendar year. And they're going to say, prove to us the whole calendar year what your qualified disability expenses are. But if for some reason you couldn't come up with that, you'd be subject to income tax, the beneficiary's income tax rate, not yours. So if they're an adult, that's probably maybe nothing. Income tax on the $500 portion, remember just the earnings portion, plus a 10% penalty. So I don't know of anybody that's had a non-qualified expenses for the year, because that's the number one questions we get after what happens if the beneficiary passes away is, how do I use this account? What can I use it on? And it's very broad. So, which is the next thing. What can you use the funds for? I love the IRS and I hate the IRS. You know, anybody else feel like that? Like it's a love-hate relationship? Yeah, you know, you have any of those relationships? It's all hate. Wow. Okay. Well, tell us how you really feel. So the Treasury said, which oversees the IRS, said, hey, we'll give you some broad categories. And they said, as long as you can justify that it's for them and falls in one of these categories, then it's a qualified disability expense. It could be health, housing, education, assistive technology, medical, like doctor's appointments, or wheelchair enhancements, or employment training support, legal fees. And then they said, and daily living expenses. I'm like, what does that mean? So food, groceries, clothing, daily living expenses. And they gave us one example in all of the Treasury regs, all 120 pages. They will give you one example. And it said, let's say you had an individual that's disability was some type of, couldn't communicate well. So if they had a cell phone, and maybe an iPad and a cell phone plan to help them communicate and navigate their community, that's a qualified disability expense. And then they said it's to be construed broadly. So then they came back and say, but it's not unlimited, so don't be gambling with the money and giving it all away. Those are probably not qualified. Alcohol, tobacco, anything illegal, most likely not qualified. So if you can justify that's for them and it's for the benefit of them and it's going to help improve or maintain their health, independence, or quality of life, qualified disability expense. So there you go. Pretty cool. And we love our success stories. If you don't follow us on Facebook, I already said that. Check it out though. And then our website too, because we do stories on actual account holders and their stories. We get a lot of people that have put down payments on cars or saving just for education, maybe, hopefully. And then, just for the future, maybe they want to help with transitional costs as they move out of the house. All right, so that's a lot. We'll end it with cost, and then we'll do some frequently asked questions, and then we'll open it up because I have about 12 minutes or so. We end at 5, right? Oh, man. All right, so let's talk about cost, right? Too good to be true. This is going to cost as much as a special needs trust. No, it does not. So we are the state of Florida's ABLE program. We're backed by the Florida legislature to make this program possible. So we try to make this as free as possible. So there are no fees when opening the account or maintaining the account. If you want paper statements, there's a fee for that. But come to find out, my records administrator is not even charging that. I don't know why, but they're not. So that's not even being charged right now. Really, the two fees you're going to see is if you want that optional Visa prepay card, it's $2.50 per month. If you want to know the contract label, it's costing us $5 the state, and we're splitting the costs with people who want the card. So that's how the state is passing on some of the expenses of the program. And then our investment options do have administration fees that help pay to secure these Vanguard type funds, and that's 0 to 0.29%. 0 being the FDIC option, has none of these investment administration fees, and then the 0.29% is more of our riskier, has some fees tied to it. But this is taken out of the return. So if you do have an ABLE account and you go check your return and go, wow, since May of last year, I've made 44% in our U.S. stock option, which is true because last year the market tanked and in May it blew up. And so that 44% was actually probably like 44.029, and we took out 2.9. So not a lot of fees. Frequently asked questions, and this goes to the question we had in the front row, special needs trust. I think this lady over here had a question on pooled trust. So high level, yes, they are different. ABLE accounts is a different section of the IRS code. Special needs trust has a different section in IRS code, and it's different statutes. They often work in conjunction with each other. We have this phrase that an ABLE account provides an additional tool in your financial tool belt. We should put that on a shirt. Does that sound like it should be on a shirt? Yeah, there you go. See, they would buy it. There we go. ABLE, an additional tool, and it'd be like a hammer or something. Anyways, I'm losing it. All right, so talking about special needs trusts, they're set up by attorneys. The whole idea of a special needs trust has that same kind of flavor of an ABLE where it's to protect benefit programs that individual may receive. Special needs trust is usually long-term estate planning. You're thinking, what happens when I pass and I have life insurance policies or a house or a vehicle, or they want to get an inheritance from a grandparent. All those things kind of fit into a special needs trust where they're funded typically by a third party, so somebody else's money. If it's the beneficiary's money, maybe they got an unexpected inheritance or they won the lottery, that would be a situation where they would set up a first-party special needs trust. First-party special needs trust belong to the beneficiary, are subject to Medicaid recovery. That's just part of trust law. Third parties are not subject to. Do I have? Oh, look, I have a little cheat. Man, I should have just went to the next page. Other things you're going to see that are different is they can be costly to set up depending on how complicated they are. There's provisions usually to allow people to fund an ABLE account. Depending on which attorney you talk to, it says you may or may not have to have that provision. ABLE accounts, they're different. They're flexible. It can pay for housing and food, but it is limited to $15,000 per calendar year. There's no taxes. It's free to enroll. The beneficiary can manage their own ABLE account if they're capable. One thing we did not talk is about pooled trust. Pooled trust could be first party or third party, depending on your situation. Pooled trust sounds exactly like the word pooled. It's pooled resources. So maybe some families have some money, but not a significant amount to create one of these more robust special needs trusts. Well, they can pool with other families to do a pooled trust. Usually it's lower fees. There's usually a single point. It's run by a nonprofit. So there's just some additional rules. Now, and there's another type of pooled trust called a qualified income trust, and that's not on here because I'm not an attorney. And so, but basically, like it sounds, a qualified income trust allows people to earn additional income. It'd be put in a trust, though, so they can keep their Medicaid benefits. But one thing that's not on here is a piece of legislation that no one is talking about, but working persons with disabilities legislation. If you are working and on Medicaid, and especially the home and community-based waivers, you can actually earn a significant amount of money. You'll probably lose your SSI benefits, but you can keep your I-budget money and your long-term care money or Medicaid services and earn up to like $4,000 a month. So for those that are interested, I could show you some information afterwards, but I know we're running kind of close on time. Yes. Yes, so exactly. So I'll show you all the information I have. It's like, for some reason, they don't want people to know about it. I don't know why, because it had to do with, she said that applies to me. I'm trying to work more and keep my Medicaid. How does that work? And I'll show you. If you move out of the state, check that state's ABLE program. There might be unique benefits. When you go to enroll, you're going to be like, this website looks a little bit different. You're going to see a little splash screen that talks about Someday. Someday is our records keeper, our back-end administrator. They're the fancy legal term, subsidiary of Bank of New York Mellon. So this large financial institution actually runs the back-end for our program, which is great because they have the same kind of core mission of trying to improve lives through saving and investing. So they use them, and when you call them, you're actually talking to somebody that works for Someday. And you're not talking to me, but you can talk to me. I'm here. Taxes we talked about. You'll get, for establishing the ABLE account, you'll get a 5498 QA that basically says, hey, you have an ABLE account, and we're telling the IRS that you have an ABLE account. The 1099 is what you'll get. The 1099 QA is what you will receive if you make a withdrawal from an account. And that shows you the earnings on it. Once again, it doesn't require a filement. It's only you have to file if you didn't have any qualified disability expenses. And I'll leave our contact information. And then also, I'll tell about this. If you have not heard, all new accounts created by the end of the month get a free $50 contribution. We really encourage people to say, hey, just try it out. Save for that rainy day. It doesn't have to be much, but just enough to when a pandemic occurs out of the blue, that you'll be prepared to have money aside for whatever rainy day may happen. So definitely check that out. That's a great way to get a little boost. But here is the contact information for us. Feel free to write it down, but I will go ahead and open the floor for other questions. We'll start here, and then we'll work our way back. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a minimum per month that you have to do, or you can just put in like once or twice a year and that's it?
Good question. So there is a minimum contribution when you open the account of $25. After that, there is no minimum. The only minimum you have to do is if you do make a contribution, it has to be at least $5. But there is no timeline. You can just put. I talked to a lady this morning, and I think she's still in here. Maybe she had an account. She took. We did one of our first promotions. We were giving $100 away because we were so eager. And that $100 has been in the entire time in the account. She says it's just been sitting there. I've been watching it go up and down, and hasn't taken advantage of the full account, but it has that ability to. So you could let it sit. You can add to it monthly. You can do systematic, automatic contributions to the account. It's up to you. Yes, sir.
If somebody makes a $5,000 contribution to this account, a family member, is that tax deductible for him?
Good question. I actually took that little section out of the presentation, but no, they do not get to deduct that from their federal taxes. So the question is, if you make a contribution to an ABLE account, can I write that off of my taxes? And unfortunately, no. the way ABLE accounts are structured, it's considered a completed gift to them, not a tax deduction. Even if you're the parent, correct. Yes, ma'am.
If someone contributes, like he says, $5,000 to the account, does that count towards the 15,000, or is it only how much the person, the beneficiary?
Yeah, that does count. So the question is, if we put 5,000 in, if a family member does it, does that count towards that 15,000? Yes, it's 15,000 from all sources, whether that be the beneficiary's money, mom and dad's money, the church down the road's money. They put money in the account. All of those combined count to 15,000. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll go to you. Yeah, able to work is basically allows somebody to contribute above that maximum if they choose to. Yes, ma'am.
For my new child, if I were to put the SSI check every month into the ABLE account, since he's a minor, because of my roof, and I use him for housing expenses, does that work?
Yes. So good question. This is one of those created loopholes that ABLE accounts allow, is that people on SSI recipients, maybe they have extra SSI funds, they can actually put that into the ABLE account, then have the ABLE account pay for housing, and then put that, if it's under mom's roof and you're paying mom and dad for housing, they can say thank you, and then they can put that back in the ABLE account. That way the person gets the full SSI benefit, they get their housing paid for, so it's a win-win situation. But yeah, that is one of those nice loopholes that attorneys love to point out, and so we're thankful for those attorneys. Yes, ma'am.
So if you want it linked to the bank account, like if you want the ABLE account with the money in the bank account,
Yes.
if it's a representative payee account?
So usually we recommend individuals not connect the representative payee account to
Only that SSI check.
so she's asking about representative payee accounts, and you're tracking that and keeping it separate. We usually recommend not tying that to the ABLE account, because let's say you want to make a withdrawal from the ABLE account and the only connected account is that SSI check, it could mess things up. So usually we say, hey, just cut a check and then send it in to deposit it. We see that as primarily the way. If it's coming from an SSI representative check or account, we primarily see people sending in checks for those. All right, I have 1 minute, right? Is that 1 minute? One question. All right, sir, we're going to go to you. So good legal question. Once again, I am not an attorney, but I will answer it anyways. What happens if, this is for educational information, so is there a strategy? You have a special needs trust, you have an ABLE account. I can tell you how accounts are currently used. Most special needs trusts I see that are utilizing an ABLE account are depositing the $15,000 either at the beginning of the year or throughout the year, and they're saying, hey, go use your ABLE account for your daily living expenses, for food, for housing, and that way it's not necessarily impacting your trust. And then they're using the trust to pay for some of those larger expenses or bigger type of vacation items or something where it's a significant purchase versus, hey, I just want to go grocery shopping. Well, use your ABLE account for that, and I'll put that special needs trust money in the ABLE account, and then you can utilize it. But that's primarily how we're seeing. And there's one, I think that, was the lady asking a question, or was she telling me I'm out of time? I think she was telling me I was out of time, right? Is that what she was doing? She was waving her hands. I'm like, I think I'm out of time. But I'll stick around right outside, but thank you all. That's ABLE accounts. Hopefully you learned something. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a great day.